Hello guys, welcome back. In today's video we are working on the UI. Before we talk about sockets or UI, I'd like to define the shape of the data my app uses. This file over here doesn't run any logic, it just describes what the data looks like. So we need a few things here. First, the symbols, right? That's very important, right? The symbols. It can be in tic-tac-toe game, it can be an X or an O, right? So we need the cells too. We need to define the data for the cells too. And the cell can be empty or it can be any symbol. It can be the symbol X or can be the symbol O, right? And also we need to define the data when the game starts, right? And also we need define another data when the game stay, right? And this is when there is a move basically, and we need to define a data when the game is over, right? So let's start by defining this data, right? So how we are going to define this data? We need to export this first, and I'm going to use type. I'm going to name it symbol, right? Just like this basically. And in the tic-tac-toe game, as I said before, a player can only be an X or an O, right? So that's why we are defining this data. Now, what we need to define ourselves, or we need to export here these two, and it's gonna be a type, and it's gonna be I'm gonna call cell value, and it can be an X or an or can be null, right? Which null represent an empty value, right? So now we need to define the data for when the game start, right? So let me type this over here, and it's gonna be let's do a type also. So in here I'm gonna name it's game start payload, right? And why I name it like that is because this payload will come from our backend, right? And we need the room ID, and all of these will be come from our backend, which will be a stream, and then we need the board, which will be basically the cells, right? In this case, the cell that we just defined over here, right? It's gonna be an array, and then we have, we need to keep track of the player, the concurrent player, right? Which will be a symbol too. It comes from over here, and then we need my symbol, right? So this determines who start first, right? So basically the server is telling us which room we are in, and the initial board, right? Which initially will be all empty, right? And also whose turn it is over here, and which symbol belongs to this player, to the first player, right? So, and then we need another data, and this data is for when a player makes a move. So it's gonna be type as well, and I'm gonna name it game state payload, right? And that's because it will come from our backend as well. That's why I'm naming payload. So we are gonna need here the board and the cells, right? Can be a symbol, which is an X or an O, or it can be null, right? So that's that, and then we need current players too as well. Current player in again, right? It's gonna be the symbol, right? So, and we need another one for when the game is over, basically. So, and we are gonna do the same thing. We need to export that, and it's gonna be of type. It's gonna be type as well, and it's gonna be game over payload, right? It's just to be consistent. And over here we are gonna need the board again. It's gonna be the cell values, and it's an array, and then we need a winner, right? So because this one will determine who is winning the game, or whether it's a draw as well, right? So it's gonna be a symbol, or it's gonna be a null value here, because remember from the backend we are returning null if there is no winner, right? If there is no winner, we know it is a draw, right? So, and we define this, right? And it's gonna be a boolean. So basically this payload is sent when the game ends, right? The server ends the final board, who won, or null if nobody won. So, and whether the game was a draw. So basically that's what we are doing over here. Okay guys, now that we define our data, we need to create a socket connection, right? So for that we are going to utilize a hook, right? A custom hook in this file, right? So first thing that we need to create a function, and this function it's for our custom hook, right? For our custom hook. So and then we need another one to create the socket connection, right? So and we need another one to clean up our connection, right? And why is that very important? You know, when the screen unmount, we need to disconnect the socket, and this is important because it prevents memory leaks and it stops the server from thinking the player is still connected, right? So that's why we need that. So, but let's start by creating our function, and we're gonna call it cons use socket, right? And we're gonna create the arrow function just like that, and let's add this in there because we are gonna need that there. So now let's create our connection, right? So let's start by defining a socket variable, and then we are gonna make it equal to use memo, right? And yes, we need that, and we are using memo so the socket is created only once for this screen, right? So let me create that and see how that works. So now we need to create this connection, and also we need to accept the server URL, right? And it's gonna be an string, right? So basically we need that, and we need to use an anonymous function, and we need to import this, yeah, from let me do this import first, right? We need to import, yes, from the socket client, and also we need to import the socket, right? Yes, just like that, and we need to return that as well. And yes, just like that. And then here we are going to pass the URL, right? The server URL, basically. And then we are gonna need to use the transport WebSockets, right? So, and what this is doing is basically forcing the WebSockets, so to keep track of the connection, right? So the connection is stable and avoid fallbacks like long pooling, which are not great for real-time communication, right? So, and then right after that, we are going to pass the server URL, and here we need to do the cleanup, right? And we are going to use a use effect for that. Use effect, yes, just like that, yes. And at the end, we need to return the socket, right? And with that, we have our connection created, right? In the next video, we are going to build the brain of our game, right? Basically, we're going to use this custom hook to write that logic, right? So stay tuned and see you in the next one. Please subscribe, like, and share this video, right? That helps me a lot. Thank you, guys. See you next time.